Hey folks, and welcome to the Week in Review, 2 weeks removed edition here. We are going to focus specifically on 3-1 to 3-8. My apologies for this week. Last week we just had a rough one here with kid illness, not COVID related, but stomach bug related, and a couple other things. So we are back. We got a lot to discuss. I wanted to start off this edition with a look at spring standings. I know they don't mean anything, but it's interesting to me, right? If you look across the league, you have the New York Yankees on top of the American League East at 12-7, followed by the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles, and Rays in that order. Nobody's really pulling away, but again, it's spring, right? In the Central, you've got the Twins, who many have written off as a kind of maybe past their prime organization here, leading the division with the Tigers right behind them, Indians, White Sox, Royals. I would imagine at the end of the year, most people are expecting that to go White Sox, Cleveland, Minnesota, Kansas City, Detroit. So interesting to see there. In the West, the Angels on top at 13-6. No surprise there. But what is interesting is the Oakland Athletics at 13-6. We will discuss them a little bit later on, are in second place technically, but tied on top between the Angels, Mariners, and A's, all at 13-6. The Astros at 11-8 and the Rangers at 10-9. All five teams in that division with winning records. No surprises. The AL West is the diamond standard for this league. In the National League, you have the Mets at 16-3, the team of the spring. I mean, come on. What'd you expect, right? The Marlins 15-4 in second place. That is a surprise, with the Phillies behind them at 11-7. The Nationals and then the Braves sitting at the bottom. Fuck, that hurts. But this is about what you expected, right? The Mets are going to run away with this division. You'd have to figure again. In the Central, the Cardinals, Pirates, Cubs, Reds, Brewers. A lot of people's trendy pick for a team that could make a swing at a wild card spot in the National League. So you get 5-13 with actually the worst record in spring so far. Again, spring, so don't want to read into too much. And then out west, you've got the Giants at 12-6 on top, followed by the Diamondbacks at 12-7, the Dodgers, the Padres, and then NL, favorite to contend at least, Rockies at 7-12 at the bottom. So I thought it'd be interesting just take a look at those things really quickly. The big thing that stands out to me is that the Mets are just absolutely dominating this spring. I have not looked at their strategy. I don't know if it's starters or reserves or who's playing there. 16-3 really doesn't matter, right? It's just impressive to look at. Let's move on to the news of the week, right? Let's start with the signings. There were 2 signings this week of note. The first one being Daniel Fields signing with the Toronto Blue Jays. Daniel Fields isn't necessarily a huge needle mover in most people's eyes, I wouldn't imagine, but he's a good depth piece for a team that, well, I mean, you want to say they don't really need depth pieces in Toronto, right? But Daniel Fields is a nice piece to have. He plays left field pretty well. He is probably capable of playing right field if you give him some time in spring, right? He doesn't have much of experience there, but I'm sure he can play. He does just about everything across the board adequately. He can hit for contact. He puts it in the gaps. He can hit home runs. He doesn't strike out a ton. He'll walk enough to be relevant, right? He had a down year last year in Minnesota, but before that, he was a 2-WAR player starting every day. So it's not a huge number, but you throw a guy that bats left-handed into this rotation here in Toronto. He hits right-handed pitching really, really well. I like this. He's not going to kill you on the base pass either. I like Daniel Fields as a signing, specifically as a 1-year, $5 million flyer for a team that doesn't have a ton of holes and nowhere to put that money. Daniel Fields is a solid signing for the Toronto Blue Jays, right? The other one that went down this week is Jason Hayward, a player who's been getting a ton of press from league insiders of, hey, why hasn't anybody signed this guy yet? Specifically when you talk about the Bryce Harper trade that was going around. A lot of people were wondering, hey, if you're going to trade, and you're going to give all this money or all this prospect capital, if you will, for Bryce Harper, why would you not just go sign Jason Hayward? Because in the short term, I think you'll get similar production out of a guy like Jason Hayward. That was a lot of the conversations I heard, right? Now, Jason Hayward has since signed a 1-year deal for $7.4 million. I think Daniel Fields might sign for 2 years, by the way. In Detroit, the black hole of the American League. I would expect that this is a sign and flip kind of move from Jim and Josh out there in Detroit, the 2-headed monster that is their GM team. I would expect Jason Hayward plays out his contract and then, sell some tickets and whatever, and then he's flipped for a couple of prospects at the deadline to a team that either suffered an injury or is looking for some outfield depth as they make a playoff push. But I don't hate this, right? If you have $7.48 million laying around that you're not going to spend in Detroit, why the hell not take a flyer on somebody like Jason Hayward for 1 year who can put some butts in seats, win a couple of games, hit some home runs, play some good defense out and right, and then get your prospect at the deadline? I got no problem with this. I think it's a good idea, right? those were the only two real signings of consequence. There were some smaller things that didn't really need to be addressed, but those are the ones I wanted to look at. On the waiver claims, there were two interesting ones that I thought at least were worthy of discussing. The first one would be Arturo. I'm going to see if I can pronounce this dude's name correctly. Arturo Maltos Garcia, who was claimed by the Kansas City Royals off of waivers from San Diego. He has made a couple of different stops through the waivers this offseason, if I'm not mistaken. To be fair, I didn't really look up his path before we got to this point, but he's a 29-year-old reliever. He's got good stuff. He's got good control. He doesn't have much movement on his changeup or his curveball, but for a low-risk guy making the league minimum, for a team like Kansas City who's looking for bullpen arms, I don't mind this. The guy got blown up in 12 appearances over 10 innings last year in San Diego, but he pitched really well at AAA prior to that, over 124 innings, including starting some games, which is nice. He was good in San Diego in 2019 to the tune of a 3.36 ERA across 139 innings. So I don't see why you don't take a shot at this. I mean, he's not going to strike out anybody, but he's also not going to walk a ton of people, and he's not going to be somebody who gives up a ton of home runs. So, I like Maltos Garcia to see if he can catch fire in a bottle for a year here. Again, maybe it's a flip situation. Maybe it's not. I don't know. The other piece that I thought was interesting, which will eventually lead us to a couple of topics I want to talk about. Again, I guess I'm kind of teasing Oakland a few times here, but is the claiming of Chris Farrell, who has been, it seems like on every team possible at this point. Did he end up here, or where did Farrell end up? I thought he ended up in, oh God, anyway, I'm sorry. I thought he ended up in Oakland, but maybe not. This might be a completely pointless conversation. Sorry, everybody. This is right there. Yeah, he's in Oakland. Okay, I thought so. So he was on waivers from Boston. I mean, that kind of surprised me. He pitched 10 games out of the bullpen, 20 innings for the Red Sox last year, to the tune of a 2.70 ERA, striking out 13 per 9, walking only 2, right? That guy was great out of the bullpen in a limited capacity in Boston last year. He did play for the Blue Jays. He started 20 games to an acceptable 4.75 ERA. I mean, 4.75 ERA in Toronto is going to win you a couple of games. He won 8-5. Got claimed off the waivers by the Dodgers. I think he actually went to the Braves at one point, then he got put back on waivers and then went to the Dodgers, where he made one appearance before being put on waivers and then was claimed by the Red Sox. And now, again, put on waivers. He's in Oakland, right? I like Chris Farrell. I always have. I think he's an interesting piece. He still brings some gas, right? Hits 97 at the top of his radar gun here. It's interesting to see him go to Oakland, specifically with the rumor that we're going to get into here a little bit later, which is Lucas Giolito. Now, that rumor has died down over the last week. Right? This was something that was more relevant last week when I didn't get a chance to get on the air. But there was rumors that Lucas Giolito, who has been spectacular this spring, was on the on the trade block. He's 26 years old. The guy is really, really good. He spent 1 year in Oakland after being in Tampa and being spectacular. Over the last previous couple of years, he won 9 games with a 3.72 ERA, despite his BABIP being way up from his career average. Still was almost a 4-win pitcher, right? He actually increased his strikeout rate to 11.6 per 9, while setting a career high in strikeouts, it looks like. So the fact that Giolito hit the market was an interesting piece, but I like the idea of Chris Farrell being like a security guard here. If Giolito goes up the top, Greinke, Buehler, Miller, Johnson, Howard, and then I guess Farrell, or you kind of figure this thing out, maybe Howard goes back to the minors. I don't know. But anyway, we'll get to that Oakland piece later. I thought that was a really interesting piece. I like Chris Farrell a lot. So no problems with the pickup there out in Oakland. Let's get to the trades, right? I'm going to save the big one for the end. So let's start with the smallest of the 3, and that would be the Atlanta-Cincinnati trade. This sent John Howe, a left-handed relief pitcher from Cincinnati to Atlanta in exchange for Josh Lowe, a very good center field prospect that actually came over from Oakland last year in the deal that sent, I think, Trevor Story to Oakland. So John Howe is simply a left-handed arm, right? And left-handed arms have been so difficult to come by this offseason. They have been highly sought after. Giving up a prospect like Josh Lowe for a 28-year-old left-handed reliever who struggled last year, probably a little bit of an overpay for Atlanta. But if you're going to compete, this year, you're going to have to be able to come out of the right hand and out of the left hand, out of the bullpen. And Atlanta couldn't do that before this trade, right? They had a very left-handed heavy rotation with 4 left-handed starters and 1 right-handed starter. But the only guy coming out of the bullpen with a left-handed release was Max Fried, and he's coming off of a year-long injury. So I don't know that that's where you want to put all your eggs into that basket. So I'd like the idea of them adding a guy like John Howe here, even at the expense of Josh Lowe, to see what this does, right? I think Atlanta has ambitions to compete this year for a wild card spot. And I think to be able to do that, you're going to have to start investing in the bullpen. So nothing to write home about here, right? I think Cincinnati gets a great piece in Josh Lowe, who will be in the bigs probably in a couple of years, manning center field for them. So I think it's a win-win there. Let's go to the Boston Dodgers trade really quickly. I think there's a very clear winner here, depending on how you feel about Derek Fletcher. I am not a big fan of Derek Fletcher, but, that could just be me. He just looks like a dude, right? Like he's just and I don't mean dude in the sense of like, man, this guy's a dude. He looks awesome. I mean, like he just looks like a guy to me. And if I look at who they gave up, which would be Javier Meja. Ooh, that's rough. Mejia? I don't know. Either way, if you look at him, he is a very good-looking, again, left-handed reliever that has been so difficult to come by this entire offseason. He actually joins what I guess is his brother, and Victor Mejia, out in Boston, who is their closer, the 26-year-old lefty, right? He was very good for LA. He struggled in the NL or American League East in 2019 and in 2020 with the Yankees. Went out west to the National League West and pitched to a 2.41 ERA over 41 innings. He's always been a high strikeout guy. Really, it's just about can you get a defense behind him? Now, Boston cannot, so don't worry about that. But the guy throws 100 miles an hour from the left-hand side with a sick fastball curveball combination. And to get him and only give up a guy like Derek Fletcher, who didn't have a spot on this team anyway behind Dave Allen and Todd Kuhn, I'd love that for Boston, right? Dodgers, again, I don't know enough about their bullpen to say that this is a win or a loss for them. Maybe they don't need him, but I thought this was a great get for Boston. Anyhow, the big one that we all wanted to talk about, and I am already at 12 minutes. Damn it, this is going to be a long one, guys. It was 2 weeks off. That would be the Colorado-Pittsburgh trade, right? The Alex Bregman trade, as it will become known forever, evermore. This caused a lot of controversy because Alex Bregman was not known to be on the block. He was just rated as the number 2 overall third baseman in Major League Baseball by MLB Pro, by Kaiser Justin Soze. And he's only 26 years old, coming off of a 6-win season for the upstart Pirates last year, who made the playoffs. Did they make the playoffs? I don't remember. I remember betting against them and the owner of the Pirates getting pretty pissed off at me. But, either way, the guy's Alex Bregman's an absolute stud. And to let him go without having a bidding war for him, while classy, you have to give it that, right? Like, nobody loves to be on the other side of the bidding war. Was a bit of a surprise. I think his name was going out there. You look at the players that came back, Matt Cronin, a 23-year-old left-handed pitcher who keeps the ball on the ground, right? Got lit up in Colorado in a small sample size of 2 starts last year. Pitched well amongst AAA and AA, right? Nothing to write home about. Was one of the pieces that came back. He came back with Harrison Bailey, who is a 19-year-old, again, guy keeps the ball on the ground, ideally, but he's only 18, 19 years old out of Marietta, Georgia. Good little pitching prospect there. Ryan Higanow, who is another 18-year-old. Again, like, we'll see. There's a lot of room to develop there. DJ Uiagalelei, nope, that didn't go so well. Another pitching prospect who, seems to have flaws, but you can see what Pittsburgh's doing here, loading up on young pitching prospects. And then Jerry Kane, who's whatever, he's a filler. He hit pretty well at AAA last year as a catcher, so I guess he's just catching depth for the Pirates. For Alex Bregman, could they have gotten more than that, right? For, let's call them B level, B minus, C plus level pitching prospects, and a catcher fill-in for the second best third baseman in MLB Pro in a very weak division, weak position. We can argue that till we're blue in the face. The reality is the Pirates got a deal that they like, and whether we agree with it or not, it's already happened. For the Colorado Rockies, on the other hand, they gave up nothing off their major league roster. They've already overhauled their pitching staff with Clayton Kershaw coming in this offseason, right? Yep, he came in January. Trevor Bauer coming in in November. How the fuck did Colorado have anything of value to give up to any of these people? Because his system sucked last year, and since then he's brought in Clayton Kershaw and Trevor Bauer. And Alex Bregman. Doesn't make any sense. Whatever. But this lineup, if you look up and down the thing here now, Hideki Abe leading off. The guy was an all-star last year. He has been spectacular in Colorado since coming over from the Braves. He was a 6-WAR player. He was a 6-WAR player in Atlanta in 2018. Atlanta flipped him for peanuts to Colorado. 6-WAR player again in 2019. Took a regression last year down to a 3.5-WAR center field. I think you'll take that any day of the week. Right, Hideki Abe leading off at the top of the thing. You get Steve Winter, who I just absolutely adore out there in left field, batting second. Now Bregman slides in at third, who hits right in front of Jed McKinley, who's been one of the best catchers in baseball for years. Right behind him is Carlos Correa, one of the better middle infielders in the league, followed by Sergio Barreda. He's all right, but I mean, he's nothing like that I'm really worried about. He'll probably platoon a little Ron Foster and Bill Pike. Then you got Wendell Ayers, who came over from Atlanta last year. He's 23 years old. Kid was great. Posting a combined 2-WAR across both teams last year. Not in a full season, right? So you have to figure he'll get something more, but he's fast on the base pass, but he's great defense. Then you've got Alonso Martinez, who he's all right, manning third base. You probably look for an improvement there if you could. And then David Condolis right now is set up to play right field. That's probably not a permanent thing, but I really like him as a flyer out here. You do have Todd Jones, you have Stuart Godin, you've got a ton of guys here. Right? This Rockies offense is ridiculous. Couple that with the fact that their pitching staff is also ridiculous. Couple that with the fact that their bullpen includes the likes of, Nick McCulley, Dennis Moore, Jake Mann, Krishan Holly, Kadir Hashim, some of the best names in baseball. This team is just stacked. And the fact that they're not the favorite in the NL West tells you how good that division is. I love this trade for Colorado. I don't like it for Pittsburgh, but again, this is one man's opinion, right? Pittsburgh clearly sees something here. If you look back at the trade that they made with Atlanta, I tend to slant that way for Pedro Jimenez, a pitching prospect who went to Atlanta in the return from Alec Baum and Jared Stevens. Alec Baum looks like he's ready for the big time. Jared Stevens looks very good. Pedro Jimenez looks like he's fallen off into just dog shit now, right? So what do I know? Pittsburgh clearly sees something, and they drove that team that looked like nothing at the beginning of last year to a playoff contender. So you've got to give them the respect. They know what they're doing here, but looking in right now, without the benefit of hindsight, this looks like a terrible trade for Pittsburgh. So anyway, that's that. We are going long. I'm going to stop that assessment here. Good on you guys. Let's see what goes on. The last thing I want to talk about is this Giolito rumor, right? Because the notes that I had sent to me on this is like, why the hell would Oakland trade Lucas Giolito? Why would they even entertain it, right? If you're a team like Oakland, who has publicly stated against just relentless beratement from his peers that he is going to compete in the American League West this year, why are you looking to take your best pitcher, by the way, your only left-handed starting arm, and trade him? What is the hope that you will bring back here? I don't have an answer to that question. My guess is Gesford's just bored. He likes to talk trades, and he wants to put this guy out there to see what he can get done. James Tate's injury, I think, happened after this rumor, right? So maybe James Tate's injury pulls him back, but I think even without him, their pitching staff's fine. I mean, I just don't see what he's trying to pull here, right? He's got guys like Dylan Carlson, who look like he'll be ready in a couple of years offensively. Greg Faustini looks like he's finally going to get his shot this year on the offensive side of the ball. Now he has struggled hard in spring training, hitting 196. Across a couple of smattering of games here. He was fine last year in AAA and AA, though, so I don't think there's a lot of concerns. I'm bringing these guys up because I don't think they need to load up on prospects with a win now mentality, right? I mean, you still got Paul Bailey, the catching prospect. So I'm trying to figure out if they're going to entertain this for real. Like, if this isn't just bullshit, what are they looking for in return? Because I don't think it's prospects. They can't be prospects. They just got Nick Allen from Washington, right? I know that the A's were looking hard for a middle infielder, but Nick Allen seems to have filled that gap. Now, you could argue that Mike Moustakas and Keon Barnum and Franmil Reyes and Juan Francisco and some of these guys that are like, they've got holes in their games. Chad Scott, some guys. I like Chad Scott a lot, though. I do. maybe he's looking for some upgrades there, but like then now you're talking superstar pitcher for superstar batter. That kind of trade doesn't happen often in MLB Pro, at least not to my knowledge. I think typically what you see is superstar player traded for prospects, right? So I don't know that this is a legitimate offer. Let's pretend like it is. Who are the teams that are going to come out here and bite on Lucas Giolito? Yes, he is spectacular. 26 years old. He is awesome. But he's also owed $23 million this year, $22 million next year, $21 million in 2023, $21 million in 2024, and $20 million in 2025. It's $100 million over the next 5 years with no options, right? This guy's an injury away from being a nightmare on your payroll. So the number there already eliminates a number of teams in this league. What God only knows what's got to look for in return eliminates another one. But let's play pretend here, right? If I am just going to pretend without looking into the financials of how to make it work, who's looking at this pitcher? Cleveland comes to mind, right off the bat. Now, that may seem silly because I think they just dealt. No, they still got Strasburg. Rod Swift, Steven Strasburg, Malinowski, if you want to go that route, I guess. Sean Stevens. They've got some good guys behind them. But if I'm Cleveland and I am looking up at what the White Sox have done to this point, even though the White Sox are now dangling Kyle Cody, I might make a run at this, right? I know he's been active. He's got some interesting pieces. Jazz Chisholm, who came over from the A's. Davis Mills is down there. Jeremy Elliman's a nice piece. He may be willing in Cleveland to make a run at this. Right now, I do know if he would ever consider parting with Chris Betts, he won't. That Scott would certainly be willing to listen to that situation and bring Betts over to Oakland and a couple of these prospects. He would probably go down that road, but I don't think Cleveland's dealing Chris Betts. So let's pretend like Cleveland is one of the viable options. Do they have the pieces to get them? I don't think so, right? One of his best offensive prospects just came over from Oakland in a trade to get him Keon Barnum. I don't think they're going to swap those two guys back. So I don't think that's a viable option, right? The next piece that I would throw out there would be the Cubs. Now, the Cubs tend to make their splashes in free agency and spend their money there. They don't have a ton of prospects available, right? Some of their guys like Jake Berger probably can't move. I mean, this is Jake Berger's time. He's got to come up. He's hitting very well in spring. He's got to come up and get his time to start now. You got Gavin Lux. Again, I think Gavin Lux gets his shot this year. It's just my shot. Is my thing here. But there's a couple other guys here. The Cubs, if they can make it work financially, would be an interesting choice because they've got Ryan Copeland, who I love, at the top of this rotation. He's been terrible in spring, mind you, probably just being miserable over moving from the Angels to the Cubs. But they've got Madison Bumgarner, who's still got a little bit left in the tank. So if you throw Giolito, Copeland, Bumgarner, 1, 2, 3 at the top of this rotation, and you've got Julio Urias, who is an interesting left-hander. You can throw 3 or 4 really good left-handed starters out of here in this rotation. The offense isn't anything to write home about, but you know what? Neither is the NL Central. So with the Pittsburgh Pirates seemingly taking a step back with Bregman leaving, this kind of being a one-horse race with the Cardinals at the top, the Cubs could make a run at him and potentially be viable. Do they do it? No. I don't think they have the pieces to go get him anyway, but that would be a team that I would think would be at least inquiring and making a push. You have to consider the fact that Eddie is absolutely involved. The Rockies have already asked 1,000 times, what he wants and kicked the tires here. The last team I would think would be the Houston Astros. Now, they have historically been clingy to their prospects, right? I don't know that Matt Wells and the Astros would want to make a run here. Didn't they deal a pitcher or something? But if I'm looking at this team, unless you want to consider Josh Norman ace, the one thing that this team really needs to be competitive in the National League West is a skid-stopping ace. Will Rainey has been good. I don't think he's that guy. So if they go out and get somebody like him, Giolito, that would be wonderful. Now, I don't think Scott deals him inside the division, so I think that kind of eliminates Houston already, but Houston makes the most sense to me, right? I just can't see anybody here. Like, the National League East makes a ton of sense for me. Some of these teams in the National League, they have to make a move. These teams are loaded with prospects. The Marlins, the Phillies, the Nationals, the Braves, all loaded with prospects. None of them close to the Mets. And the Braves pitching staff's fine. And honestly, most of the pitching staffs are fine. But I don't think anybody there is going to make that splash. None of the other owners here between Ryan and Miami. I forget the fellow's name in Philly. My apologies. And then Tony and Washington have not shown the propensity to go out and make a big splash like this. So long story short, it's a bunch of bullshit, I think, from Scott. I spent 20 minutes talking about that. So my apologies. I'm going to end this thing. Thank you for watching 24 minutes of the weekend review. I will be back next Monday as we count down the days to opening day. Enjoy your week.